Hello, Burst users. My name is Rafael Reyes, and I'm with the Center for Early Reading at Amplify. This video provides you an introduction of Burst. Our objectives during this video are to confirm the importance of targeted intervention, to learn how Burst helps catch students up, and to know what's required to get the most out of Burst intervention. Our 2 million student nationwide data show that most struggling readers, those who began the year below benchmark or well below benchmark, don't get to benchmark by the end of the year. For example, in kindergarten, schools get about half of their students who start the year well below benchmark to grade level. And they get about 7 out of 10 of their students who start the year below benchmark to grade level. But in grades 2 or higher, those odds drop to about 1 out of 10 when students begin the year well below benchmark, and 5 out of 10 when students begin the year below benchmark. Why do you think it's so difficult to catch students up if they start the year well below benchmark or below benchmark? Take a moment to type your responses in the chat box. One reason it's so difficult to catch a student up is that catching up requires a student to grow faster than their grade level peers. This video visualizes what needs to happen in order to catch up. It's a clip of the freeze. For those of you who don't know the freeze, he's an act that comes out to perform in the 7th inning of Atlanta Braves baseball games. At the start of the games, fans register to race the freeze, and one is picked at random. And then during the 7th inning stretch, the fan is given a substantial head start so that by the time the freeze starts the race, the fan is about halfway to the finish line already. Does the freeze catch up? Let's take a look.
My new favorite promotion on the road here, the freeze rock. A fan gets a head start, and then the freeze tries to catch him. I mean, that's a significant head start.
Yeah, no kidding.
I didn't think he had a chance, but he just fetched this guy. Closing speed.
Is this instead of the mascot race?
I love it. This guy can fly.
Looks like a young Davey Nelson.
And then down it goes. You lose, sir.
Man, he wasn't even breathing heavy.
What did the freeze do to catch up? He ran faster than the fan until the point that he actually caught up. The freeze is our struggling reader in this instance. If we are to get struggling readers caught up, we need to get them to grow faster than their grade level peers. But what does it take to get a student who is behind to grow faster than their grade level peers? Enter your responses in the chat box. One way to help students who are behind grow faster and ultimately catch up is to focus or target the additional instruction that they get during intervention. Specifically, to focus it on what each student is ready to learn at that particular moment every day. Let me show you an example. I'm showing you the item level results of a first grader at their MOI, specifically the item level results from the NWF assessment. The student scored a 29 on NWF, which is well below benchmark for that time of year. As you can see from the red, The student doesn't yet have accurate letter-sound correspondence. And as you can tell from the lines, they're struggling to blend letter sounds as well. Do all first graders who are well below benchmark at the MOI need the same skills? Most people would say yes, but that actually isn't true. Let's take a look at another first grader who scored 29 on NWF assessment. As you can tell, the student on the right has accurate letter sound correspondence, and they demonstrate the ability to blend. However, they're slow in that they tackle fewer nonsense words. So both of these students are behind their grade level peers. As a matter of fact, they've gotten the same identical raw score on nonsense word fluency at the MOI. But in spite of sharing those same raw scores, they're at very different points in the continuum and they need different instruction to optimize their progress. The child on the left needs support on letter sound correspondence and blending, whereas the child on the right needs to improve their fluency. But how can staff deliver tailored instruction to each of these students day in and day out in order to maximize their growth? Up until recent times, schools have had two unsatisfactory choices for early elementary reading intervention. The first is paper programs and the other is computer programs. Paper programs are great on one hand because they're staff-led, but they come with a prepackaged scope and sequence that doesn't target instruction to the specific needs of each child. As a result, they tend to advance struggling readers too slowly to catch them up. Now, some paper programs do allow for the use of progress monitoring data, but they expect busy teachers to analyze that data and make adjustments to upcoming content rather than automatically providing those adjustments to educators. Most computer programs are at least somewhat data-driven, but they're not necessarily a good fit for early elementary students because many 5 to 8-year-old students can't really self-regulate on devices to make best use of that time. Also, computer programs are designed to be used as a supplement for all rather than an intervention for a few who need to rapidly catch up. For example, some of these computer programs offer only 45 minutes of instruction per week, which is below the minimum recommended by institutions such as the RTI Action Network. Amplify set out to find a solution to this dilemma. We asked ourselves, how can we get the best of both worlds? How can we make automatically targeted staff-led instruction a day-to-day possibility for educators? We convened a national panel of experts to help develop a solution. These experts included leading researchers such as Catherine Snow from Harvard University, as well as practitioners from school districts. The solution we came up with is called burst reading. We think burst reading is a breakthrough in reading intervention. It uses software data analysis algorithms and a large activity bank to do the heavy lifting of data analysis and lesson prep. After you do your DIBELS benchmarking or progress monitoring, Burst automatically analyzes item level data and identifies the optimal focus area for each student. Burst then automatically puts students who share the same focus areas into small homogeneous groups and then automatically prepares detailed targeted lessons for each group by selectively pulling from a bank of more than 4,000 research-proven activities and then matching those activities to the student's shared zone of proximal development. Staff then deliver instruction to those students in small groups, and students during other times of the day or on nights and weekends complete extra practice to build their automaticity. And then the cycle continues once PM data, progress monitoring data is refreshed. Let's go through each of these one by one. The first step is to progress monitor your students. Many of you have dibbles in place already and are familiar with this. We'll go into this deeper in future modules. The second step is grouping. Recall the two first grade students we discussed a bit ago. The two had the same score on their MOI benchmark, but these students were at different points in the continuum. Specifically, for one, their most recent data suggested that they should now focus on letter sound knowledge and blending to improve their accuracy. For the other, their most recent data suggested that they should now focus on regular word recognition and irregular word recognition to improve their fluency. But how does BURST actually go through and make those determinations? Let's take a look. What I'm going to show you is the grouping algorithm that an intervention coordinator would use as they're forming groups of students. They typically do this work by grade level. So they would start by identifying all the classrooms in a particular grade. So let's say, for example, we want to focus on grouping students within the first grade level. In this particular example, I'm showing 4 classrooms, and they would essentially pull all the students from those 4 classrooms into a pool. Their next step would be to edit grouping preferences to tell the system which students to exclude. So for example, if you want to exclude those students who are already at benchmark or above benchmark, you could tell the system to exclude them. In addition, you could tell the system to exclude those who have IEPs or those who have ELL status, students who might be getting alternative programming already for reading intervention. And then finally, you would tell the system your preferred group size. What average group size do you want to strive for the groups that you want to serve in first grade? And then you would tell the system how many groups you would want to create, and voila, the system automatically produces the groups with the roster of kids and their instructional focus. That's pretty quick. And what's amazing here is what you don't see. You don't see an intervention coordinator or an educator toiling with spreadsheets and dragging and dropping students and doing item level analysis. That type of work is very cumbersome, and that's the work that BURST automatically does for you. It essentially, in the back end, uses software algorithms to identify the specific weaknesses and strengths that each student has and identifies exactly what they need to focus on, and then finds other students that have the exact similar profile as them to form a homogeneous group. So the impressive thing that you see with BURST is the grouping process, the data analysis process is very simple. It's just with really a few clicks of a button. Let's now take a look at the lessons that BURST generates for interventionists. This is another screenshot of our software after the groups have been created. Here you'll see the name of a particular group, and you'll see what burst has been created. So if this is the first burst, it'll say burst number 1. And then you'll have access to the lessons, the set of lessons right here, and then supplemental resources off to the right. You'll also see which students have been placed into this group and where each is in the burst continuum on reading skills. In this case, most of these students have some phonological awareness, but really no letter sound knowledge. To view the actual lessons, all you need to do is press the View button. When you click View, you get a set of lessons that are data analysis algorithm and lesson generator compiled for this specific set of students at this specific point in time. We call this set of lessons a burst. No two bursts are alike because every group is likely to have different needs at any one point in time. And at every burst, there is a 10-day roadmap. This roadmap is a great way to get an overview of a 10-day plan. Let's take a look at a 10-day roadmap for this particular burst. You'll see that for the next 10 days, the students in this group will focus on 2 skills, phonological awareness and letter sound knowledge. And during those 10 days, there are 9 lessons and 1 day set aside to administer progress monitoring. All bursts are packaged this way. And each daily lesson has 5 activities, A, B, C, D, and E. All lessons are also structured this way. Burst has a very standard structure in terms of the 10-day period and the 5 activities per lesson because we want to have a very repeatable process for interventionists so that way they minimize the learning curve and the time that it takes them to get up to speed. For this particular burst, on day 1, the lesson introduces the concept of phoneme segmentation. As students progress through each day, they move along the PA continuum and they'll get activities that are progressively more difficult. For example, for phonemic awareness, students start with phoneme segmentation and identification, but by day 6, they go on to phoneme substitution. And then on days 8 and 9, they move into first, last, and middle sound segmentation accuracy. So as you can see, students are moving within the PA strand progressively further along the continuum as the burst progresses. Now, as you all can attest to, most humans don't learn something in any one sitting, and there's a need for people to have repeated exposure and practice over time. That's why you'll also see that content within bursts is introduced and reintroduced again. For example, for the letter sound knowledge strand, on day 2, activity C, we introduced the letter sound for M. But then on day 3, we reintroduced the letter sound. Let's turn our attention closer to day 9, the last day of instruction in this particular burst. As you can tell, the activity starts with last sound segmentation accuracy, and then activity 9B is middle sound segmentation accuracy. Let's take a closer look at what the actual instruction looks like for day 9, activity B. As I mentioned, this activity focuses on middle sound segmentation accuracy. Let's take a moment to study it first before we see it in action. As you can tell, the goal up at the top for the students is to identify the middle sound of spoken words. And you'll see that the lesson is very detailed. Mr. Say, the Pac-Man type figure, guides the instructor through the entire lesson. Pedagogically, you'll see that the burst starts with a modeling activity, or an I do, and then follows with a practice activity, which is a you do. All bursts are structured this way. There's always a modeling piece and a practice piece. In some bursts, there may be a we do portion if the activity is particularly complex. You'll also see that the materials are listed there, materials that you can get from the kit or materials that you may already have at the school. And also there's supports and challenges that allow you to differentiate instruction even within the small group of students in the moment as you're working with them. Let's move on to actually see what burst looks like in action with kids. Let's watch the activity 9B being delivered to a group of kids. Before I hit play, I want you to reflect on a few questions. Are there any kids who find the activity too easy? Are there any kids that find the activity too difficult? And are kids engaged doing the thinking? Are all kids engaged doing the thinking? I'm going to play the first 5 minutes of this video so that you have a chance to see most of this activity being delivered.
How are you guys doing? Good. Okay, great. All right, so today we're going to start with a game and we're going to pretend that we're sound detectives, okay? So I'm going to show you guys some pictures, and we're going to need to find some pictures to fill up our bag. So I'm going to say a sound, and I want you to find which picture has the sound in the middle. Okay, so there we go.
Like 144 or 50.
So my turn first. Okay, my turn first. So I would like to find a picture that has the sound A in the middle. My turn first. So I'm going to be a good sound detective. Which picture has A in the middle? Found it. Fish.
No.
Ish.
Yes.
Yes. Fish has A in the middle, right?
Oh, I think so.
Fish. Fish. So we're going to put it in our bag. All right? Okay, let's work on the next one. So raise your hand if you know the next one, but I haven't said the sound yet, so how are you raising your hand? Okay, the next one I would like you to find, sound detectives, is the picture that has aw in the middle. So be a good sound detective and look around. Which one has aw in the middle? Krisa.
Dog.
Dog. That's right. Put it in our bag.
Shopping.
Which sound has ah in the middle? Sutini.
Cat.
Cat.
There's two in it.
Well, you guys are so good. I'm going to add all of the pictures then.
So,
All right. Which picture has aw in the middle, Emery? Car. Say car. You're right. The sounds in car are k, r. And what sound did I ask for? Ah. Say aw. Aw.
car has
Say k, r.
R.
R. Do you hear all in k, r? No. Nice try though. Do you want to try again? Which card is that?
I know what it is.
It's a rat.
I know it's a mouse.
Well, you know what? I really love how you're giving her a chance and waiting for her to get a turn. Tell me the sounds in rat.
At.
What's the middle sound in rat?
At.
Ah, but I asked for all. Let me try to help you out. Look at these two. Which one has the aw sound in the middle? What's the picture?
I don't know what this is.
So how do you know it's that one?
It's a box.
Okay, so here. This is
It's just a guess.
It's a guess. So let's not guess, because we're trying to be sound detectives, right? And a detective, they're not trying to guess. They're trying to get the right one. So this is 6, and this is fox.
Ox.
Which one has aw in the middle?
Fox.
Fox. That's right. Thank you.
I can show.
Yep. You can put it in the bag.
Don't put it over.
Okay. Which one has the ah sound?
Hat.
Hat. You want to grab it?
Oh, I can't.
Want to help him? Put it in the bag. Right.
What?
Which one has the, thank you for sitting down. Which one has the sound in the middle? Rocks.
Duck.
Duck. Right. Which one has the aw sound in the middle? Sutini.
Mop.
Mop. Nice.
Thanks for watching that activity with me. I hope you guys enjoyed it very much. One of the things that I noticed was that all the students in this particular group were at the same zonal proximal development, which is a testament to the burst grouping algorithm. No one student was bored and no student was overly frustrated. At the same time, what you should have also seen was a high energy, fast-paced pedagogy that encouraged all students to productively struggle, even while having fun. And then finally, you may have noticed subtle but impactful moves to maximize student thinking. One I saw was that the educator was calling on students after posing the question and after giving all students wait time. It's a great way to put the cognitive demand on all students, even as you're only calling on one student to answer the question. Let's go to the practice portion of Burst. Burst comes with a practice app that gives students additional practice outside of intervention. The app consists of a set of games that build automaticity and phonological awareness and the decoding skills. The games are optimized for kindergartners, first graders, and some second graders who are behind grade level. And they're really designed so that 5 to 8-year-olds will find them fun and engaging. And as students progress through the skills, the practice app unlocks additional games and new content to allow the students to advance at their own individualized pace. The practice app, which is called Boost, works on iPads, iPhones, and iPods, and it can be used during the school day, for example, during lunch or during core instruction, during your rotations, but it could also be used during nights and weekends. Each game in the app is linked to a specific early literacy skill. Students are presented with images, letters, letter combinations, or words, and they must match them to the sounds that they hear. And consistent with the burst model, new games with more advanced skills are automatically unlocked as students progress and become more proficient in earlier skills. Many teachers use the practice app during rotation station time, and they give it to all their students as a supplement, not necessarily just those students who are getting burst. Some have gone as far as having families download the app onto their personal phones or iPads or iPods, and having students use the practice app on nights and weekends, and even during the summers. Let's take a look at the efficacy of burst. What we see in our data is that students in schools that implement burst with fidelity outpace those in a diversity of other settings. I'm going to walk you through two graphs. The graph on the left has to do with student progress, the amount of growth that happened between the beginning of the year and the end of year. And the graph on the right is the end of year attainment, where those students ultimately ended up at the end of the year. Of course, progress begets end of year attainment. So let's begin by taking a look at progress on the left. Our data shows that students at exemplar sites who get burst with fidelity, the vast majority of them make above typical progress or well above typical progress on DIBELS, composite measures. So in our exemplar sites, 62% of students make above typical or well above typical progress, which means that's real gap narrowing for those particular students. National norms, by the way, is 40%. You would expect, on average, 40% of students to make above typical or well above typical progress. So we're outpacing that by 22 percentage points in our exemplar sites. On the other hand, if you look at non-burst schools in a variety of settings, those that are in urban settings, high poverty settings, high ELL or low ELL, or rural settings, or even low poverty settings, what you see is that they're roughly in line with national norms. So what we conclude from this is that burst students outpace the progress that non-burst students in a variety of settings make throughout the year. And the great news is that translates into end of year results. So what we see is that these are all students who began the year well below benchmark or below benchmark. And what we see in our exemplar sites is that 79% of those students reach benchmark or above benchmark by the end of the year. That's 8 out of 10, which is phenomenal progress. Whereas in the others, again, they're roughly in line with national norms. Somewhere between 40 to 50% of those students reach benchmark or above benchmark by the end of the year. Now, that's great, but as you can see, those students who are benefiting from high fidelity burst delivery are outpacing those students who are not getting burst. Let's hear what educators have to say. So we looked at some quantitative data, but let's take a look at some qualitative data from some of our customers and what they have to say about burst.
One of my students didn't have any pre-K experience, just came in, couldn't identify his name, letters, really came in bare. And he struggled along the way, but once we got burst rolling, the fast pace worked for him. He was eager to do the next and to learn more. Burst is a 10-day cycle, so it refreshes. We teach for 7 days and we assess the students on the skills that were taught for those 7 days. Then it regroups and pulls that data so that the lessons can be formed for the following 10-day segment. Burst coupled with our M-Class really helps to manage our groups, to pinpoint skills to work on.
Remember that a sentence has to have a who or a what. So who do we want our sentence to be about? What do you think, Hannah?
About you in class.
Maybe about me in class. So maybe I would say I am, what's this word?
First class.
I am first class.
Burst is the right instruction at the right time with the right intensity. The fact that it's ever changing and it's responsive to data is the strongest point. It's very individualized. It values what children know, and it shows us where we can capitalize on those strengths to firm up some other areas where there may be gaps.
Our teachers really plan together and we cross-class group so that we can actually meet more children's needs. When you have a group of students who need the same type of interventions or their skills are similar, then you're able to use activities that really hit all of their needs. It helps to keep them on task, it helps to keep them focused, and they feel like it's special, and it is special. It's specially designed for them.
What Burst has done for us in the district is it's allowed the teacher more teaching time because it's doing all the creation on the back end in terms of what does this child need in order to progress in their learning path.
It's so fun to be in a school and watch when the children come into the room for their burst lesson. You can see the delight in their eyes. They're going to get that time with the teacher. We're able to compare children who have had burst with children who have not had burst. And those results have been very impressive.
So you've had a chance to see some of our internal data as well as hear from some of our customers, but it's worth noting that burst has external validity. We've subjected it to a large nationwide study funded through the Federal Department of Education and monitored by the University of Michigan. The study was 14,000 students, 7,000 in a treatment group and 7,000 in a control group. And in that study, researchers found that students getting burst outpaced those who were getting a diversity of other programs. So what's the overall message we'd love for you to take away from this introduction to burst? The bottom line that we hope you take away from this is that burst can help you get your struggling students caught up by making daily targeted staff-led instruction a reality in your schools. It completes data analysis for the team. It provides standardized progress monitoring probes for you, and it automatically analyzes that diagnostic data to determine the optimal focus for each student, and then automatically groups those students into small homogeneous groups. But in addition, besides doing the data analysis, burst completes the work of targeted lesson preparation for busy staff. It uses research-proven pedagogies, and it automatically produces detailed, targeted lessons that a wide variety of staff can implement with fidelity. And importantly, It extends practice for students into nights, weekends, and other free times in the school day. And then finally, because it's targeted, many of your students won't get bursts all year long. Some of them may, but many of them should not. And as a result, that positions you to be able to maximize the number of students you can serve, because there's some weeks where you'll be serving a certain body of students, and then as those students change out, another group of students can come in and be serviced with burst. Before we wrap up, I wanted to review some of the practices we see in schools that get the most out of burst. The reason I'm going to list these is because we're going to cover some of these in future video modules. The first practice we see is that intervention coordinators group across an entire grade. They take all classrooms from a grade and do the grouping from that pool, as opposed to limiting the grouping to students in a particular classroom. The benefit of that practice is that it optimizes our ability to target the specific skills that each student actually needs. Another practice that we see is that the intervention coordinator optimizes class schedules and staff schedules to ensure that every student in need is in a group, and that each group is assigned an interventionist and they have a time in the day and a place in the building to get intervention. The third practice is that schools start strong, and this is particularly important for kindergarten. Those schools that get the most gains out of burst begin their intensive intervention or begin burst intervention early, even in kindergarten. The fourth practice is that they hold Tier 2 and Tier 3 instructional time sacred. So they essentially treat Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction as they do core instruction, meaning that no matter what else is going on in the day, this has to happen. It's as important as core instruction. Another practice is that the interventionists get coaching on their delivery of burst. Some schools, their mode of operation is to limit the coaching to core instruction, whereas those schools that get the most out of burst treat burst instruction as core instruction, and not only do they hold that time sacred and make sure that the instruction is actually happening, but they also provide feedback to those interventionists to ensure high quality delivery of those lessons. Another practice that we see in these schools is that they ensure progress monitoring data is accurate. And they may go as far as limiting the progress monitoring responsibility to a few who've demonstrated their accuracy at progress monitoring. And finally, another ingredient in their secret sauce is that they have a single owner in the school who essentially serves as the day-to-day coordinating force for intervention. It's someone who oversees student progress, who updates groups, spots students who might need a Tier 3 level of intensity or a different modality, but they do have a single point of responsibility for the overall program. In terms of next steps, we recommend that you talk to your school leader or your intervention coordinator to find out what role you'll be playing in your school's implementation of burst this year. We then suggest that based on your role, you review the remaining webinars that are appropriate for your role, and then we suggest you get started. And if you need any support, please feel free to contact our educator support team. Thank you very much for participating in this video. I'm going to open it up to any questions that you may have.